Welcome, everyone. My name is Kareen Mills, and I'm your host, Mother Hustler, on Being a Mother Hustler podcast. I am so excited because we have the author of From the Welfare to the Whitehouse, Coco, Cosette, Leary. Welcome, Coco.
Woohoo! Raise the roof. Thank you so much, Corinne. I'm so excited to be here.
I know we've been trying to get this thing going forever, and we're finally here. So I'm really excited to sit down with you and really kind of ask you through your journey of how you came out of welfare and now girl, you're on a mission, mama, right?
Thank you so much. Yes, I am, and thank you.
You are so welcome. So talk us through about your childhood, because I know for a fact that our childhood, rough or not, they tend to define us, and we tend to do things in our adulthood because of our childhood. It's almost like a reaction of how our childhood was subconsciously and the way that we do things when we become adults. So talk to us about that journey as you were growing up, and kind of take us through your teenage years and how those years truly defined who you have become now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Whew. My growing up, I'll start at about age 10 and kind of go through. I grew up in the ghetto, very impoverished neighborhood in Southside Sacramento, California. Our neighborhood was predominantly African Americans, Latinos, and people from Laos, and everyone was scrapping for existence. In my household, the dynamics of poverty and lack of self-esteem that my mother endured was passed on to me in a lot of ways. Her knee-jerk reactions to a lot of things was out of desperation and a response to crisis.
I see.
Yeah, unfortunately, she didn't have a lot of tools available to her to know how to parent in a positive manner. So child abuse became a daily ration in my home.
Wow.
And so I endured very severe beatings. She had a refrigerator cord that she would use to beat me with. And I often, as a child, would look around my neighborhood and see the other families and see other single mothers and other just mothers in general, whether they were married or not. And I realized that even at 10 years old, that I was in a melting pot of a toxic environment. And knowing that we were poor, this was something that my mother reminded me daily, that we don't got nothing, and you're not going to be anything. So by the time I was 10 years old, I started carving out an idea from my imagination of who Cosette would be if she had the opportunity to create the childhood that she wanted. And I would allow myself to go to these magical imaginary places, and I would escape into possibility.
Wow.
And that served me well and still serves me well. As I got older, by the time I was 12 years old, I was removed from my home. Child abuse had not really hit the forefront yet. It was 1985 and I was 12 years old. And I remember being like 11 watching a movie with Farrah Fawcett in it called The Burning Bed. And it was about domestic violence. And it was the first time I ever saw anything mainstream showing someone being beat. And my takeaway from that movie was the beatings were wrong. This is wrong to hit someone.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there because you just gave me so much goosebumps, girl. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
So one of the things that really was downloaded to me, what my podcast, because it's become just more than now space to hold, or a place to hold space for women like you, for mamas like you, for mamas like me. And really, it's like this space that I've been so hungry and starving to hold for my mom, because my mom went through domestic violence. And as a little girl, I watched her, my mom and dad wrestled.
Yeah.
And it's this powerless girl watching that wants to fix everything. And so being the adult that I am now, and like I said, it shaped me to who I have become. That's why I love talking about childhood in the beginning of my podcast, because there's so much work we have to dig deep down there in our childhood to really heal. And so when you're talking about escaping from your reality and imagining a lot of the things, like, what if Coco can do this? What if Coco have all these opportunities? The one thing that has downloaded to me that my podcast has also become is to become a mother to people who doesn't have a mom, or who may be jumping from one foster care home to another because of an abusive childhood like yours, who really needed that outlet, and maybe they don't feel like they belong to, the actual home that they are placed in. And so they're looking for an outlet that maybe, hopefully, they stumble upon my podcast. And so it's just these layers of purposes that I've really discovered and uncovered just by being a podcast host. So I'm like, oh my gosh, there's actually a lot of us that wanted an escape when we were children. And imagine how many children now that really can resonate to us when we were a child, that are right now, as we are talking here, could be, getting a hold of this podcast and listening to it while they're in the situation. So I wanted it to also become an escape for them, and something for them to listen to, that look at these used to be kids that are now hosting podcasts, that are now, authors. There's unlimited potential for them. So I want you to speak to them. Absolutely. And talk to them about, what's on the flip side if they're going through the same things you and I had gone through, for whatever it is that they're going through. Like, what is the inspiring message you can give them?
What really was inspiring for me, and really held the glue in my life to be able to go through all of those things and still come out a whole person, was that I knew I wasn't the only one dealing with this. Even as a child, I knew I wasn't the only child on the planet. And I knew that there had to be other children like me. And I would really honestly think about that and begin to realize that in me, I have to forge a champion, because my imaginary realities that I was creating was to be a hero for myself, and then to become a stronghold and a hero for other kids. So that began my idea of service. And when I'm thinking about giving counsel to another youth who may be in similar circumstances, I would love to encourage them to embody the power of their pain that they are feeling, and understand that by conquering this, by reaching out to other people for help, by letting people know what's happening in their lives, and then channeling those emotions into becoming an activist for what they're going through and what other youth may be going through that are very similar to what they're going through, and to tell their story. Tell their story. Begin to write their story in tablets. Begin to do it with all of the technology online. Begin to tell their story, because that will help foster their purpose. And that had a lot to do with me surviving the child abuse.
Wow. What an amazing
to look at it that way.
So how did you know that you weren't the only one going through that? And I remember you said you were looking through the neighborhood and you realized that you weren't, that it was a toxic environment for you. Was that when you realized that you weren't the only one because you saw other kids go through that?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, you're hitting on so many things. Thank you. I remember noticing when other kids would come to school with webs on their arms too. There was a real cultural thing in the African American culture where a lot of us children, and I'm speaking from that, but I'm not saying that it's only for African American children. I'm sure children of all ethnicities may experience things like this, but it was very concentrated in the African American community that the parents would whip you with extension cords. And the extension cords would leave these whelps, and you would recognize those whelps on another child, and you knew by the shape of it that they were getting beat just like you. And so when I would go to school and I would see whelps on other kids, I knew they were being beat too.
Wow. Do you guys ever spoke of it together as children?
Not until I got in the receiving home.
Wow.
When I got in the receiving home, I was 12. I saw so many kids I knew, some from the church we attended, some from the neighborhood. And we had a chorus within the tone of what we were saying, because we were saying to each other, "You're here too?
Wow.
You're here too? You get beat too?"
It's almost like Me Too, you know, like.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Girl. Love you, girl.
Oh, thank you. Love
Amazing.
you too.
Amazing. So, wow. You saw those whelps and you actually felt at home when you saw those whelps. That's, you know, as victorious as that sounds now, that's really sad at that moment, right?
Very sad and confusing.
Wow.
Because as a collective, we, as the children in the receiving home, many from the church that I attended and in my neighborhood, we knew something had been done to us, something awful. Unfortunately, many of them did not get past drug addiction or prostitution. I saw a lot of my childhood friends become addicts. We started out, like when I got out of the receiving home, I got put into the Sacramento Children's Home. And when I got to the Sacramento Children's Home, we thought we were so cool because we could go up to the gas station and buy cigarettes, Marlboro cigarettes, girl.
Wow.
We were so cool, right? And fortunately for me, I never went beyond the cigarettes. But a lot of the youth did. And when we would sit around with our Marlboro cigarettes, and then we upgraded to Camel. And I'm not endorsing smoking. Not endorsing smoking cigarettes. I'm just saying, you know, this was childhood for us, little orphanage
This
kids,
is your journey, girl. This is you.
You know, this was we were really becoming rock stars when we got up to Camel cigarettes. So that's the hard stuff, Camel. And we would sit around and talk about what happened in our lives. And in the children's home, I met other kids that I never even knew. And I remember there was one girl, she was so beautiful. She was my very first real introduction to a mulatto person, half African American and half Caucasian. And she had the most gorgeous blue eyes. I just was looking, I would always look at her and I would always tell her, "You're so pretty." And she would say, "Thank you, Coco. You really think so?" And I would say, "Yes, you're so pretty. Oh my gosh." So like, your dad's black and your mom's white. You know, we would talk and we'd have our cigarettes and we're talking and we would start sharing what happened to us, you know. So what happened to you? Unfortunately for her, when she was 4 years old, she witnessed her father shooting her mother in the face and killing her. And that's when she became a ward of the court. So as a collective of youth, with our Marlboro, Camel cigarettes, many of them went beyond the cigarettes and they went to drugs, you know, cocaine and stuff like that. I had seen those things, but something in me knew that that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to beat this thing. I wanted to beat this thing. I wanted to beat child abuse. I wanted to beat being a ward of the court. I wanted to beat and win over unfortunate circumstance. So I would start to look for other ways. And I became an avid reader. I loved books. I would escape in books. And so instead of going to drugs or prostitution or whatever, I went to books. And I started reading from Maya Angelou and different people.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, you know, and those type of people became my teachers. Mentors through the books. And I even loved Tom Sawyer books. And I would just get all into Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn and Becky, and I would just escape.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot here because I'm a self-love junkie, personal development junkie. I used to speed read. Now, like, I take my time and I chew before I swallow the content of the book. And then I write down what I learned from the chapter of the book without reading, you know, without going through and writing down exact words, but in my own words. Like, I reflect on that chapter and I take notes. So what do you think generationally conditioned your mom and essentially a lot of the people in your neighborhood to do that to all of you, to a lot of you kids? Like, what do you think? Because I know we have to understand where they come from. As harsh as they probably, I'm almost positive that I'm not making excuses for it, but a lot of the things that our parents do, kind of like my mom, who's still married to my dad to this day, and they are conditioned by the generation before them. And then the generation before them conditioned them too. And so, like I said, we show up in our adult life because of how we were raised. It's just how it is, right? And so looking back at your older generation, and I kind of understand why my mom is still married to my dad, whether I'm against it or not, because in their generation, like, they were pounded with this conditioning that once you're married, and also you put a layer of religion there, which is Catholic, you know, once you're married, you become essentially like almost like enslaved to your husband, whatever he wants. And whatever he does to you, you are the glue that holds the family together. And I believe that we are, because we're just badasses like that. But it has its boundaries. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can't be the way that my mom has been living her life. There has to be boundaries. And so, but I know that conditioning wise, my mom believes in that. So talk about what you think of how your parents were conditioned.
Yeah. My mother, her and I did not talk much. For her, I was too much of a replica of my biological father.
Mm.
And when she would look at me, she would see him. So she would be like, get out of here, go to your room, go. It's like, yeah, quit looking at me, looking like your doggone daddy type of thing,
Wow.
But every once in a while, I would get a chance to peer into her a little bit, peeking around the corner. There would be times that I would hear her in the living room on the couch crying. Mm. And I would peek around the corner, making sure she didn't see me, because I knew if she saw me, she would get in a rage and, get out of here, But as my mom would cry, I would look at her and I would wonder what hurt her. Mm. I knew I couldn't ask her because that was grown folk business. I would be getting out of my place. You all in her business. So I knew I couldn't ask her, but I would watch with curiosity because I would cry about a lot of things and my mom would cry. When I look back on her now, being that I'm a mother myself, yes, 4 children, about to have my 3rd grandchild, my first granddaughter will be born in June.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. As a child, I hated her and loved her. It was weird, but more hate than love as a child, because I could not understand why my mother would be so mean and inflict such pain upon me. But now I really realize it was because she was hurting. Mm-hmm. She was hurting. And her rage and the burden of disappointment. I used to think after I got grown, I would think about me and my mom, and I would say, I was kind of to her like they used to have this saying that like people would have these T-shirts. They'll say, I went to Texas and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. I used to see that all around.
Yes. I know.
And all I came back with was this lousy T-shirt. I felt like for my mom, I was the lousy T-shirt. She had fell in love with my dad. She had escaped a terrible identity that she had of her own. And as a youth, because my mother, I believe, was 16 when she had me. And she had fell in love with the man and lost the man, but she was left with this child, the T-shirt, if you will. And whatever was wrapped up in her romantic memories of her and my dad, be it good or bad, yes, I would find her sitting on the couch crying.
Wow. This is deep.
Yeah. Wow. The need for love. I've heard people say that the emotions of love and rage are not too far away of kissing cousins.
Wow.
My mother had me as a result, but whatever pains and struggles she endured, she also had the responsibility of having me. And when life was not going the way it should be going, I think she would have breakdowns.
Wow.
Corinne, what it left imprinted on my heart from being 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 and pregnant with my first child myself was the deep sense of wanting to be accepted. We want to belong. Mm-hmm. And when we don't, a lot of times, we act out.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's learned behavior. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact that she came from a childhood where 3 braided switches is what you got your butt whooped with real good.
Wow.
So I think for her, and for myself, because let me be completely transparent here, because I love being transparent, because that's how people can have breakthroughs. I started out the same way with my own children. Mm-hmm. That's why I say learned behavior. Mm-hmm. When I had Kayla and then Adriana and Champagne, I thought at first my knee-jerk reaction was to spank their butt real good. Mm-hmm. I mean real good. Smack them. You better act right. Then I began to realize what I was doing, because I could see the look in my kids' face. They would look at me like, Mommy, I thought you loved me. You just hurt me. And I did not have any peers that I could talk to. Even my own beloved grandma that I love to death, she came from old school butt kicking, okay?
Yeah.
I didn't have, so I started going to the library reading positive parenting books.
Wow, you went home to the books again.
Oh, books are everything to me. They've always been my go-to to learn. Wow.
Well, let me just tell you, girl, that you ain't no lousy shirt anymore. And you never was. And that's just an exterior, intrinsic someone else telling you. Unfortunately, it's, or making you feel that way. I think we were created to be badasses to begin with. And it's the outer exterior influence that kind of creates these subconscious negative self-talk. Things that we negative self-talk ourselves has a lot to do with our childhood.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I just want to commend you, because you are just such an amazing human being, soul, everything.
Thank you.
And so it leads me to when you described your cigarettes and all that good stuff that you were kind of escaping into as you came to the receiving homes with your friends. What do you think, or how do you think we can become a solution to those kids, to becoming a part of the solution? Because obviously with your strength, your smarts, and your determination, you became the solution yourself. You made a decision not to go beyond cigarettes. You made a decision at a young age. I mean, for a young person to make that kind of a major decision is even more major, right? So what do you think we can do to solve or even ease this problem? Because a problem like these that are generational is going to require 10 times the generation too, like 10 times the work to fix, or even more. But I'm not talking about a fix. I'm talking about slowly solving these problems. What do you think we can do as an individual to make an impact in the community? Because these communities still exist to this day. And I'm sure you know that, right?
Yeah.
You've already written a book called From Welfare to the Whitehouse.
Yeah.
Which is one solution, because you are proof positive that you can get out of that system and grow from that and learn from that. So what's Coco's idea of a solution?
Are we, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So are we talking in regard to youth that might still be in those similar situations that I'm describing?
Yeah.
Connecting with them. And connecting with them. And I know that sounds so simple, connecting with them. But really taking the time to actually listen and help them create their idea of themselves. I was fortunate. We've talked a lot about my mother. We haven't talked a lot about my dad. My dad was named Ellis Ray Leary. He and my mother divorced when I was 7 years old. But up until then, he taught me so much in those 7 years that helped me withstand all the different things that I went through. And when I say connect with the youth and talk to them and listen and let them see themselves in a wonderful light and constantly say to them, you are brilliant, you are smart, you're funny, oh my goodness, you got me cracking up. You know, what kind of things do you really like to do? And not only ask them what they like to do, but try very hard to have resources for them to do what they like to do. That's why I'm so big on networking, because knowing somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody is very important, even when we're talking at this level, because you can have a youth that is maybe really interested in fashion or being an architect or a computer whiz or a doctor or a nurse or even opening up a daycare center or whatever. And if you yourself don't know a whole lot about it, but you might know someone else, then that gives validation to what they're wanting to do. And you can connect them with that person, again, if it's not yourself. But back to my father, and why I'm saying all this is my daddy. He gave me the gift of imagination. Now, I must say something. He died when I was 12. So by the time I became a ward of the court, he was already gone. He did not see that part of my life.
Wow.
No, okay. So, and I never revealed to him what I was going through in that aspect. But my dad really made sure that I understood who I was.
Wow.
When I was a little girl, we would go walking around my grandparents' property. They lived in Longview, Washington, and they had 8 acres of land.
Wow.
And we would walk through there and look at baby deer and baby rabbits and try to find moles and all these things in the molehills and everything. And my dad would always say to me, Cosette, you are smart. You are beautiful. Wow. You are talented. You can do anything. And he would give me imagination. He would give me magic. Gave me magic. He would tell me that the baby deers were Bambi. And of course I believed him. He would tell me the baby rabbits was Thumper. And I believed him. And he would tell me that I was the princess of all the acres.
Wow. Can you imagine how simple those acts were, but yet it made so much impact on you? Like when I tuck my kids in, I lay with them and we just imagine. And I tell them you're great, and greatness doesn't come from other people. It comes from within you. But it's, you already have it because God already made you born that way. Yeah. You know, like, and I learned that from personal development books. I haven't always been this amazing mother. In fact, I was a horrible mother because I was chasing my career and the grandeur of, you know, success that we thought success was. And so everything that I have transformed myself into is through books, through conferences like you and I had spoken in the same stage.
Yeah.
Amazing. And, you know, when you spoke, I took a lot of notes, and, you know, the message that you spoke of, and you breathe life into people now, which is like, what, you were abused when you were a child in the ghetto and you breathe life into people? You know, like, there's so much hope that you carry with you and the hope that you can give to people. And I mean, you know, the message that you told all of us was to take it. Like, how do I do this? Just take it. Take the opportunity. Grab the opportunity. Don't question it. It kind of showed up in front of you for a reason, didn't it? You know, like, we question everything so much that, like, now I don't question a lot of things. Like, when our technology situation between you and me didn't work out so well, didn't question it. remember I said, let's just let it flow.
Let it flow. I remember you said, let it flow.
Don't force it. Let's let it flow, because there's always some sort of like energy stopping you from doing things or overcoming things at that moment in time, because it wasn't supposed to be happening at that moment in time. And as little as when there's traffic, and most of us are so frustrated with traffic because that's a human reaction. That's the natural reaction of humans. But when you vibrate on a whole new level, on a higher level, that you just like, okay, these are illusions right now. And I'm being stopped for a reason. I'm being in the traffic for a reason, because maybe if the traffic freed up, I probably would have been killed a mile away. Like, we don't ever stop to think that way, and I think that we should, and we have to slow down our life to even have a chance to have those kind of digging deep thoughts. Yeah. So you learn from Farrah Fawcett's movie.
Burning Bed.
Girl, we could be going everywhere here, but I still remember where we left off when I asked you a question. And you talked about what you learned through that. Take us through that, and then you had your baby at 14, or you got pregnant at 14. Now take us through the adulthood of your life.
Yes. I did get pregnant with my oldest daughter at 14. And that was a very interesting time, because I was a ward of the court. That meant county dollars paid my room and board, whether I was in a group home, a foster home, or an orphanage. County dollars paid for my room and board. My fetus that was growing inside my beautiful womb was not a ward of the court. Now we're going to talk about where I started getting some real strength. Here we go. Fasten your seatbelt.
Let's do this, sister.
Fasten your seatbelt. So my fetus, as they love to refer to her as at the time, was not a ward of the court. That meant there was no county dollars for her room and board.
Wow.
Once she got born. And she could not become a ward of the court because she had never been in a neglect situation, an abusive situation, an abandonment situation, or anything. She did not exist in the whole scheme of things. Okay? So since that fetus was an enigma to the situation, a big old question mark, I was brought before the judge, the court, them, the social workers, everyone. And they were saying to me two options: abortion or adoption.
Okay, so how big was the fetus then?
I was early on.
Okay.
I was early on. I can't remember exactly, but I don't think I was past 8 weeks. I didn't even know it was a girl at the time. Just, I knew I had this person in my belly, in there. And the problem was, mainly from what they were saying, was there was not going to be any money to put a roof over this child's head. And also, I'm only 14. How in the world do I even think I'm going to be a mother? And am I not seeing my own situation, that I'm in the system? I'm a foster kid, ward of the court, whatever you want to call it. And this child is not going to benefit from having me as a mother. So I represented myself before all of them. And I told them I was not going to have an abortion, nor was I going to give my baby up for adoption. I told them very directly, the only family I have left is living and breathing in this stomach.
Wow.
I am not going to get rid of my family. This is my family.
Oh.
I began to become strong. That's when I began to become strong. I had been enlightened by books. I had felt cool with the kids with my Marlboro or Camel cigarettes. I had backed away from drugs, and I loved Run DMC and LL Cool J and AC/DC. I had
oh my gosh.
But now all of a sudden, the transition from being a young teenage girl and acknowledging and realizing that I was becoming a mother was the seed, if you will, being planted of me becoming stronger than circumstance.
Isn't that amazing that when you become a mother,
Mm-hmm.
you literally become a better person? I think, like, I mean, if we use your mom as an example, I'm sure that she somehow had some betterment, maybe not as drastic as most moms.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of us moms, it took me a little while to actually like wake up to the reality that the definition of my success was no longer the definition of the success I used to have in the version of me before I was a mother.
Mm-hmm.
But we turn into a whole totally different version when we become a mom.
Absolutely. I went from being a scared, insecure teenage girl to an advocate for myself and my child.
Mm.
And with that, I began to realize that I was going to do something more with my life so that somehow I was going to have a legacy for this child that was going to make her and me proud of me. Now, it didn't happen overnight. Oh, my goodness. Of course, I done beat these people about my baby. I done won the case. I won. But there was so much more to life than the 14-year-old me didn't know yet. But what I did know is that come what may, I was never going to give up. And that is what held the magic in my womb and the strength within my purpose was I was not going to break, nor was I going to allow my child's life to be broken.
Mm.
So in that, I went on to beget Kayla, my oldest daughter. Then I got Adriana. Then I got Champagne, and I got my son Bon. But something was still a familiar echo, even in my strength, even in me standing up to powers that be, even in me saying, this is my child, hear me roar, you will not take my child from me. There was something lurking in the corners. And it was poverty. It was poverty. I had carried my children in my belly. I had nursed them at my bosom. I had cheered them on at choir recitals with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you know. But I had not detached them from poverty.
Wow.
And so for as much strength as I had and as much gumption and grit, you know, poverty was
still there.
a daily ration.
Wow.
And my children began to realize they were poor too.
Okay. So they began to realize they were poor, but you still encouraged them though.
Absolutely.
Right? You weren't like your mother.
No.
You just like made them aware, but you have more in you, way more in you than your mother ever had.
Yes.
So how did you handle that once your kids realized that they're also poor?
Yes, because my children realized often that when it was back to school season, I could not afford to go take them shopping at JCPenney's or Sears. I would have to go to Goodwill, Value Village. And they noticed that when it was holiday season, I would be very desperate to get with St. Vincent de Paul or Salvation Army or Santa's Posse, hoping to get some presents under the tree. Also back to school time, trying to get supplies and backpacks and things like that. And they noticed that they did not wear the type of clothing like middle class children did and stuff like that. And they begin to realize that it's difficult for mom to get things that we need, let alone what we want. And I began to recognize myself in them when I was a little girl, when my mom couldn't get me things and stuff like that.
Saw yourself in them.
Yeah. And that began another episode, because then I was determined that I didn't want this to be all that my kids knew. And I didn't want this to be all that I had. But everywhere I went, survival-based programs was all that I knew. You know, when I would go to different nonprofit agencies, and they would give me the basics, you know, the commodities, if you will, but I wanted to thrive. So I would be talking about higher education because I read it in a Vancouver business journal.
Yeah.
Someone had a bachelor's degree or someone had a PhD or a master's or something. I wanted things like that, you know, and I would go talking about, I want to get higher education. I want to help other low-income people. I want to start my own nonprofit. I remember, oh my goodness, girl, I was in the library one time reading the Vancouver Business Journal, and I came across this word that started with the letter P, but I couldn't figure out what the other letters, what's this word? So I went up to the lady in the library. I said, can you tell me what this is? She said, that is philanthropy.
Wow.
I said, what is philanthropy? She said, it is when people that have, you know, wealth or, you know, good money.
Resources.
Yeah, they donate to causes that are important to them. Philanthropy.
Wow.
I want to be a philanthropy. Then later on, I realized I wanted to be philanthropic. But at first I was like, I want to be a philanthropy. I had very limited income. Me and my 4 children lived off of $742 a month welfare check. Yeah. That's what we lived off of. So I wanted
that on your
philanthropic, but you know, I had a champagne taste and a beer budget. You know, so like, but I had discovered a new word, philanthropy, and I started researching it. And when I started researching philanthropy, you know, I came up with Purdue University and all these places that had philanthropic courses you can get certificates through and this and that and the other. And I began to realize that something could be built somehow. And I began to talk to my children about it, because my children, they were my counsel. They were my kitchen cabinet. You know, they were my little people in my house. So I would be like, you guys, philanthropy is important. And they'd be like, huh? And I'd be like, yes, I learned about philanthropy and this and that. And so I started thinking that I could build ways to get me and my kids out of this. And I began believing it. And I began championing the commons. You asked me, you know, when I recognized myself in my children and saw that they knew that they were poor, what did I do? I started utilizing every commons that I could get my hands on for them. Libraries, parks and recs, scholarships for this and that, you know, whatever I could get them exposed to around other kids, around other families. Moms, I talk about it in my book, that drive these little minivans, you know, and I would, you know, I wanted my kids to see a different environment, and I wanted to see a different environment too. So my love of books, of course, gravitated us to the library often, and I would read books and magazines like Entrepreneur and Black Enterprise and all. I would read. I could read them. I could get my hands on them. They were free. And I could learn jargon. I could learn new words. I could read an article about someone who did something. I remember reading about a lady, I can't remember her name now, but she was swimming the Catalina Island. She's famous for it. She was swimming that. And
she didn't finish.
She didn't finish. I remember when I read that for the first, I don't even know where I came across it, but I read it, and that she was only like a mile away.
But there was
the fog had rolled in, and she was tired, and she was an athletic swimmer, and the boats were, you know, next to her, and they were cheering her on and everything, and she was like, I'm done. And when she got back in the boat and she realized she was just a mile away, she's like, oh my goodness, I was so close. Wasn't it Chadwick?
I forgot her last name, but I'm super familiar with this story.
Yes.
Because it's truly success. It's just like on 1 mile away. And if you quit because you're so tired and you've like gone how many miles behind you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, oh my gosh. So you just essentially told me the solution to the problem. Like, books solves a lot of problem. The library like solves a ton of problem, and it impacted you. Imagine how many other kids and moms and community public library actually impacts. You just like literally given me what truly happens when you give to the library. Like, where does your money go? You know what I'm saying? Like, people like you, we're so delusional, like the middle class, we complain a lot. We're so delusional about not making enough money or paying money in taxes and, you know, like not having the nicest car on the road. And like, our problems are literally, Coco, is not a problem. You know what I'm saying? And I love your story because I hope it wakes up a lot of people that when we complain about the weather, when we complain about the snow apocalypse that's about to hit.
I know, girl, don't say nothing. I'm freezing.
Oh, my goodness. It's like oh my gosh. Seriously, girl. You make my heart smile a ton. And you've like created, you know, like an understanding of what really isn't in the surface. Because when we go about our days, we're so busy. We got to get the kids to school. We got to do this. We got to do that. I got to log in my computer, and, you know, like it stresses us out for no reason. Like, you want something to stress about? Don't like go to the library and look at all these people that are like wanting free internet access. Cause I go there a lot, actually. I take my kids there a lot. And I love reading. So I am a big proponent of reading for kids. So my kids are reading even the books that I'm reading, you know, because books are like, have been my biggest source of knowledge and encouragement and really fuel. So now let's talk about Coco.
Yes.
Once you realize all that, Coco, I mean, you can't undo it. You know, that's the thing about books. You can't uneducate yourself once you read about it. So where did you go from there?
So from the library and learning philanthropy, the word of that, and exposing my children, I would have my children do miniature book reports on whatever magazines or books they were reading. And then I would show them things, everything from knitting to travel to whatever. And we started having all these kind of conversations.
Wow.
And we started realizing that there was a big old world out there. And then I began to realize how big that world was. And I realized something else. I realized that the world was so big that nobody was going to know me until I introduced myself to it.
Ooh, okay. Stop right there, sister. Stop right there.
Real talk. That I'm saying the truth. I mean, that can almost make me cry.
We hide so much. I work with so many moms that hide behind the wrong identity. And I created this quote, and I'm proud of it, that the only way you can truly be free is if you live in your truth. And I love how you said, the only way the world can know who I am is if I introduce myself to the freaking world.
Girl, come on. That's what I begin to realize from my days at the library, from seeing my children's awareness expand, seeing my own, seeing that our socioeconomic demographic, if you will, did not control us. And so I began to realize that I needed to introduce myself to the world.
Your teachings are so simple yet so difficult for a lot of people to literally fathom.
I know.
You mean like if I want it, I just take it? You mean if the opportunity is in front of me, I just take it? You mean if I want the world to know, I just introduce myself to the world? Like, yes, girl, that's what I mean.
That's what I'm talking about right there. Introduce yourself to the world. Now, as unique as each and every one of us are, that's how unique our ways of introducing ourselves to the world are. There is no carbon copy. Do it the way you feel. Since I had fell in love with magazines and everything at the library, I decided that I would look into magazines and see if I could find a glimmer of hope, an opportunity, a chance, a looking glass.
Wow.
And in 2004, I was working at a daycare and I found my looking glass. The children were sleeping and I had a stack of magazines to do that magazine cutout art, where they take a big old piece of this page of macaroni or a pony or butterfly or whatever, put it on that paper plate, and we throw a little ribbon at the top, and it is art that you put on the refrigerator. So while I'm doing this, I came across a Working Mother magazine. I'd never even heard of Working Mother magazine, but I knew I was a working mother because being on welfare, they would make us go out and get any old kind of pathetic job they thought would help us out, wouldn't get us off of the system, but it'd get us doing something. So I was a working mother. And I saw the magazine, and it had 3 women on the cover. It said 3 women who really know how to raise a ruckus.
Okay, really quick. You just gave me an idea. Being on the welfare system, they push you to go get another job. Why can't they just fund education for you? Because obviously education is getting you out. Reading is getting you out. I mean, seriously, like so simple solution. Read and educate.
I used to argue that fact with my eligibility workers, with my employment specialist workers. I used to argue that fact.
Because they can get you out so much faster. 4 years later, you have a degree. Look.
Girl, come on. I'd be like, so you want to pay for subsidized childcare for me for the next 13 years versus letting me get 4 years of education so that I could take care of me and my family? Where's the math here? And they would be like, yeah, well, right now we need you to get a job. So they throw me in these little jobs, and one of the most painful thing is when I was working in the daycare, I realized I was taking better care of those people's kids and spending more time with those people's kids at the daycare than I was with my own. I was reading to those kids. I was doing puzzles with those kids. I was doing dress up, playing in blocks. I was singing songs. Do your ears hang low? Do they wobble to and fro? Can you tie them in a knot? Can you tie them in a bow? Can you throw them over your shoulder like a continental soldier? I'm singing songs to these kids. And I was like, where is me and my kids' life? Wow. But ironically, while those children were napping and I was doing magazine cutout art, I find this Working Mother magazine. And I read about the 3 women on it in their articles. One was Dina Dwyer Owens of the Dwyer Group in Waco, Texas. Love of my life. She owns the Dwyer Group. And that is a franchise company that owns all of Roto-Rooter, Mr. Electric, The Window Doctor, Molly Maid, all this stuff. She's been on Undercover Boss and all these things. I read her article. It was about her and her family having dinner at IHOP. And they were watching the waitress that was helping them zoom from back and forth trying to get tips. And she thought to herself, she said that waitress' feet must really hurt her at the end of the day. She said when she got home, she was thinking, if that waitress has to go through all of that and she's working, wait for it, you guys. Oh my goodness. She said, what about women on welfare? When I read that in the magazine, I had to reread it like 5 times.
So
I had never thought anyone mention women on welfare beyond a sanctioned letter.
Wow.
I took the magazine home and I dialed 411 and I got the physical address of her company and I wrote her a letter in 2004. She had her executive secretary get back to me, tell me that Dina had read the letter, and that she wanted to talk to me.
Wow.
So we began talking. She flew me out to Waco, Texas as an honorary guest at her franchise monthly board meeting. And she began to educate me on how to educate me.
Wow.
She told me that I articulate so well. I said, what is articulate? I had never heard the word.
Wow.
She told me it means that you express your ideas, your thoughts, your passions, what your vision is for yourself and what you're expressing clearly when you talk. She said, do you have a community college where you live? I said, yes, it's called Clark College. She said, have you ever heard of a Pell Grant? I said, what is that? I don't know what that is. She said, it's where you fill out a FAFSA application and they give you money to pay for your tuition to go to school. So you cry.
Hold the front door.
I'm gonna cry.
Hold the front door. So the flipping welfare office never even gave you that direction?
No, I didn't know what a FAFSA was. I had never heard of a Pell Grant. I didn't know any of that.
Wow.
She taught me while I was there in Texas with her.
That is such a simple information. Yeah. That the welfare people could literally change so much lives. Instead of like anchoring them into welfare and giving them these silly jobs. Okay, keep going. Oh my gosh.
So she tells me, she said, when you go back to Vancouver, Washington, your home, I want you to go to the financial aid office and ask for a FAFSA application and have them help you do it. She said, you are low income, you will qualify for a Pell Grant. She said, I want you to take a public speaking class. She said, when you get done with that class, I want to see your grade. I said, okay. I came back from Texas, came back here to Vancouver, and I went and got my Pell Grant for my FAFSA application. And I took the public speaking class and I got a B. And that meant the world to me because I took the GED test 5 times before I ever passed it. Because being that young girl that was smoking Marlboro cigarettes and graduating up to Camel cigarettes and listening to Run DMC and LL Cool J and AC/DC and everything, education was the last thing I was thinking about. So it took me 5 times to pass the GED test. And I had acquired a Pell Grant and I was going to a community college and I took a public speaking class and I got a B.
Wow.
A solid grade. And I couldn't wait to tell her. And she said, now run with it.
Wow.
I went on from that to.
So she said, run with it. That's it.
Yep. She said,
wow. I love this woman.
She said, run with it.
Okay.
So I went on then because I had her support. And I will say that it is so important for women to support other women. I don't want to not say that in this because her support, another woman supporting me, another woman, allowed me to see there was another side of the rainbow. And so I did run with it. I went on to get my basic ed requirements. I went on to get an internship in U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell's office, hence from welfare to the White House, as that story goes. And I was supposed to be there for 3 months. I was in her office for 3 years as a low-income advocate. Wow. I was able to go do advancing. I was able to meet the chief of Indian Affairs. I was able to meet so many people and learn so many things about service and public service. And my children went from doing homework, from doing homework in the library to sitting in Senator Cantwell's office doing their homework. Wow. I brought them in there. I said, I want you to see this stained glass, these beautiful lamps. I want you to hear me answer the phone and say, thank you for calling U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell's office. How can I be of service to you? I want you to see your mama, who is from welfare, sitting in these chairs, helping people with their casework, helping them with their immigration, helping them with these things. And while you are doing your homework, I want you to know you are great. And you are not welfare, you are who you are.
Wow.
So then I went from that to transferring to university. And that got me to Brookings Institution, where I'm an alumna of Brookings Institution, which is a very prominent think tank in Washington, D.C. That got me to Capitol Hill, and I served in Congressman Charles B. Rangel's office in Rayburn Building on Capitol Hill in D.C. And I wrote From Welfare to the White House.
Woo! Wow.
Now I hold my degree in public administration, graduated summa cum laude from my university. I am a published author. I am a certified professional coach. I am a motivational, transformational public speaker, and I am an ambassador for low-income communities, and I am grateful.
And world, she is Cosette, Coco, Leary.
Hi.
Mic drop, sister. Oh my gosh. I know I can speak with you and dig deeper in everything that I am over here just absorbing everything, because this is so flipping good. And you are going to bless so many lives listening to this podcast episode. You are going to change and give a lot. You are a hope walking around. Seriously, you are hope. You're walking hope. I want to ask you a couple more questions before I let you go. But before I do that, I want to commend you for all of your, I don't want to call it success, because success seems like a finish line, because it's never finished, right?
No, it's never finished.
I want to call it like victory. Like, you're super victorious. You are not settling with life. You don't allow your situation to define you. You are an amazing soul, Coco.
Thank you.
I love you, sister. This
I
is
love you too. I just want to reach through the computer, the laptop.
I know.
I'm hugging you.
Couple of questions. If your mom was listening today, what message would you tell her?
That I love her. And I never thought I would say that. I love her and I forgive her because I didn't know her before she was my mom. So I don't know when her life just belonged to her, who she was. And I don't know what she carried inside. Her disappointments, her regrets, her uncertainties, her lack of self-worth. She was impoverished.
Is your mom still around?
She's dead. Her and my father are both dead. My dad died when I was 12, and I found out through the grapevine about maybe 13 years ago that my mom had died.
Wow. But, what is your message to your children?
To my children?
To your beautiful angels.
My message to my children is to live out loud and raise some hell.
I love it. I love it. Okay, one last question before we go. When you heard the word mother hustler, what came in your mind, and what is Coco's definition of mother hustler?
When I first heard mother hustler, I was like, chickens from the hood. I was like, that's a mother hustler. I was like, hold on, wait a minute. This is in the Coupe? This is in Vancouver? Mother hustler? Hey, wait a minute. So I was like, okay, mother hustler. This is hot. Okay, fire. So, but.
Awesome. I love it.
I was like, mother hustler, that's on fire. But after listening to some of your other interviews, and of course, meeting you in person and talking with you, mother hustler became not so much of what I thought of, like that it was so hood and hip, because it is, and sexy. It's like mother hustler, but it was about nurturing the gifts and souls within us mothers, because we are trying to impart so much to our children while we're still trying to live who we are in our own identity. And we carry so many hats that a mother hustler is someone who is a woman, in my perspective, a woman who has given herself permission to own who she is as the female that she is, while appreciating her talents of being able to juggle all of the things in her life and still find herself beautiful at the end of the day, even if she's wearing house slippers. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Mother hustler.
Thank you, love. That was beautiful. You know, I'm running for Woman of the Year for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, raising some money for them. And we are naming our team because we have a team of people, and we have to name our team, and all these cool names people come up. And so I go up on stage and I tell them why I'm doing it and what my team name is. And my team name is Raising Blood Money with Corrine Mills.
All right, come on.
Because it's blood cancer, right? And everybody was like, why do you call your team that? And I said, because you can get the girl out of the hood, but you can never get the hood out of the
right? Oh my God. Say that, girl.
I said, you can get the girl out of the ghetto, but you can't get the ghetto out of the girl. It was like such a big icebreaker.
I'll tell you, ain't nothing but a gangster party.
Oh my gosh. So, oh my gosh, I can literally, you probably are the longest episode I'm gonna have, because this is just so super amazing. And I'm sure we'll revisit our conversation down the road, but thank you for making this happen. Thank you for showing up as you are. And I love you, girlfriend. I love you so much.
Too. Thank you so much. Have a spectacular day.